Hi, my name is Pamela Coons, Associate Professor of Medicine in the Division of Oncology at Yale School of Medicine and Yale Cancer Center. I'm excited to announce ASCO's new open access journal, JCO Oncology Advances. As the inaugural editor-in-chief, I hope to support JCO Oncology Advances to become the premier platform to bridge the gap between accessible scientific research and clinical care. Stay tuned for more information, including new article types, at ascopubs.org/JCO Oncology Advances. We look forward to seeing your submissions in spring of 2024.
This podcast provides observations and commentary on the JCAO article, Preoperative versus Postoperative Chemoradiotherapy for Locally Advanced Rectal Cancer, Results of the German CAO, ARO, AIO-94 Randomized Phase 3 Trial after a median follow-up of 11 years by Rolf Sauer et al. My name is Theodore Hong, and I am Director of Gastrointestinal Radiation Oncology at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, Massachusetts, United States. My oncologic specialty is radiation oncology. The title of this podcast is the German CAO, ARO, AIO-94 Randomized Phase 3 Trial after a median follow-up of 11 years, implications of long-term follow-up. Keywords: rectal cancer, chemoradiation. In this study, the implications of long-term follow-up of the German Rectal Study on clinical practice and future trial design will be discussed. In 2004, the CAO, ARO, AIO published a seminal randomized trial evaluating preoperative chemoradiation versus postoperative chemoradiation in the management of T3-4 or node-positive rectal cancer. In this study, 823 patients were randomized to two treatment groups. The experimental arm was comprised of preoperative radiation to 50.4 Gray with week 1 and week 5 infusion of 5-FU, followed by surgery, and then followed by 4 cycles of 5-FU. The control arm consisted of surgery first, followed by radiation to 55.8 Gray with the same concurrent chemotherapy, then followed by 4 cycles of 5-FU. The primary endpoint of the study was overall survival. In the 2004 report, there was no difference in overall survival, but a demonstration of substantially improved toxicity and treatment tolerability in the preoperative arm. Additionally, local failures were decreased from 13% to 6% with the use of preoperative therapy. Furthermore, while abdominal perineal resection, or APR rates, were similar in both arms, a greater proportion of patients in the preoperative arms who the surgeon thought would need an APR ultimately underwent a sphincter-preserving operation. In this updated report, the investigators report on outcomes with a median follow-up of 11 years. There continues to be no difference in overall survival, with a 10-year overall survival of 59.6% in the preoperative arm and 59.9% in the postoperative arm. The 10-year local recurrence risk was 7.1% in the preoperative arm and 10.1% in the postoperative arm by intent-to-treat analysis. This difference, favoring the preoperative arm, was statistically significant. There was no difference in the cumulative incidence of distant metastases, with a rate of 29.8% in the preoperative arm and 29.6% in the postoperative arm. The initial report of this trial cemented the use of preoperative chemoradiation in locally advanced rectal cancer, in spite of being a negative study for its primary endpoint of overall survival. However, concerns persisted regarding the use of preoperative chemoradiation for all patients with clinical T3 rectal cancer. Stage 2 and 3 rectal cancer represents a clinically diverse group with very heterogeneous outcomes. With the improvement in surgical techniques, particularly the total mesorectal excision, or TME, the local recurrence risk has fallen substantially for rectal cancer. Furthermore, the Dutch rectal study, which evaluated the preoperative short-course radiation before TME, did not show a local control benefit across all subsets of patients. Additionally, emerging data sets from Memorial Sloan Kettering in Norway suggested that patients at a higher risk for local recurrence could be identified either based on clinical or histopathologic features. Because radiation therapy to the pelvis can be associated with numerous long-term side effects, including anorectal dysfunction, sexual dysfunction, hip or pelvis fractures, there has been increasing interest in selectively using radiation therapy only in those who truly need radiation therapy. There has been recent interest in defining the potential role of neoadjuvant chemotherapy alone for the treatment of favorable risk locally advanced rectal cancer. In a multi-institutional pilot feasibility trial of preoperative FOLFOX bevacizumab, all 31 clinically staged 2 and 3 patients, excluding T4, were able to achieve a margin-negative resection with a pathologic complete response rate of 27%. This experience has led to a randomized phase 2-3 study being led by the Alliance Cooperative Group evaluating the selective use of chemoradiation in patients with intermediate risk rectal cancer. This study, called PROSPECT for preoperative radiation or selective preoperative radiation and evaluation before chemotherapy and TME, will randomize patients with T2N1, T3N0, and T3N1 rectal cancer to upfront chemotherapy followed by surgery versus conventional chemoradiation followed by surgery. This study will specifically exclude patients requiring an APR and patients with tumor within 3 millimeters of the mesorectal fascia. The primary endpoint of the phase 2 portion is R0 resection rate and time to local recurrence. The primary endpoints of the phase 3 portion are local recurrence rate and disease-free survival at 3 years. This current study of long-term follow-up with the German Rectal Study sheds light into the difficulty of trial design in rectal cancer. The long-term follow-up highlights several major issues regarding the treatment of locally advanced rectal cancer. First, the local control benefit of preoperative therapy when compared to postoperative therapy persists to a median follow-up of 11 years. Second, even with long-term follow-up, there continues to be no impact on overall survival. Third, the time to local recurrence after preoperative chemoradiation is quite long, at 30.7 months when compared to 18.7 months in the postoperative chemoradiation. Most interestingly, a surprising number of local recurrences occurred beyond 5 years from treatment, with 11% of the local failures in postoperative group and 9% of the local failures in the preoperative group occurring after 5 years. This last observation from this long-term update is that patients with long-lying tumors have an unacceptably high rate of local recurrences with postoperative therapy greater than 20% compared with preoperative therapy, 6 to 12.3%. These results have immediate implications for both clinical practice and future clinical trials. The study suggests that all patients with low-lying locally advanced rectal cancer should be considered for preoperative chemoradiation based on local control benefit, not just an improvement in rates of sphincter preservation. Additionally, patients with rectal cancer should be followed beyond 5 years, as there is still a group of patients that can develop a local failure beyond this time point. Moving forward, this data regarding delayed recurrences suggests that long-term follow-up in randomized trials like the previously mentioned PROSPECT study of selective chemoradiation should be carefully considered before implementation in routine care. This concludes this JCAO podcast. Thank you for listening.
For more original research, editorials, and review articles, please visit us online at jco.org. This production is copyrighted to the American Society of Clinical Oncology. Thank you for listening.